Very good morning to you. So wonderful to see so many faces this early. Thank you for joining us this early. I hope you got some good breakfast and a hot cup of coffee. As introduced, my name is Ayu Chida. I am Deputy Director at the Asian American Journalists Association. I am delighted to be your MC today and tomorrow. And I am thrilled to welcome you to the annual APAICS Legislative Leadership Summit, which kicks off Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month activities for APAICS. To open the summit, please welcome APAICS President and CEO, Madeline Milka.
Good morning, everyone. Wow, that is such a rowdy good morning. I'm so surprised, considering so many of you have traveled from elsewhere to be here today, especially for those folks who've come from the Pacific Islands, Hawaii, like all of those, the West Coast folks. So welcome to Washington, D.C. I am Madeline Milka, President and CEO of APAICS, the Asian Pacific American Institute for Congressional Studies, and happy Asian American, Native Hawaiian, and Pacific Islander Heritage Month. I think that deserves an applause. It's my honor to welcome you to our annual Legislative Leadership Summit as we kick off this important month of celebration, reflection, and action. I would like to express my deep appreciation to our summit co-chairs, Congressman Sri Thanadar and Congresswoman Jill Takuda, for their leadership and support in making this event a success. This summit serves as a platform for meaningful dialogue on some of the most pressing issues impacting not only our AA and NHPI communities, but our country as a whole. Public policy affects all of us, and it should reflect all of us. Over the next 2 days, we will hear from elected officials, corporate leaders, policy experts, and community advocates. They will share their stories, insights, and expertise on critical topics such as representation in media, cancer care, gun violence, and the accessibility and affordability of healthcare. I also want to extend my sincere thanks to our premium partners, Amazon and Johnson & Johnson, for their generous support, as well as to all of our distinguished guest speakers, panelists, and moderators. Your time and dedication makes this summit impactful and inspiring. This wouldn't be possible without the APAICS Board of Directors and the APAICS National Advisory Council, as well as the APAICS staff, which in particular, I want to extend a deep felt gratitude to the External Affairs team led by Tanya Layden. It is important for us to remind you that you can download the guidebook app by scanning the QR codes on the screens, and you can use the virtual program book to find detailed information on speakers and the summit schedule. Thank you for being here, and let's make the next 2 days powerful and productive.
Thank you so much for those remarks, Madeline. And next, I would like to introduce Kai Hirabayashi. He is Senior Manager for Public Policy at Amazon in Washington, D.C. Please welcome Kai to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. I hope everyone had safe travels here if you traveled across the country, and we're looking forward to a great week. Asian prom tomorrow. Who's excited? Yeah, I know I am. Yeah, thank you very much. Well, like I said, my name is Kai Hirabayashi. I'm a Senior Public Policy Manager at Amazon. And on behalf of Amazon, I'm truly honored to be here today, welcoming you to the APAICS Legislative Leadership Summit. Amazon is proud of its long-standing partnership with APAICS. We're thankful for our shared commitment to raising the bar and leaving things better than we found them. At Amazon, we strive to be Earth's best employer. And we're working every day to create a safer, more productive, higher performing, more diverse, and more just workplace. Amazon is committed to creating a diverse and inclusive workforce, our company that helps us build the best range of products for our customers. These customers represent a wide array of geographies, cultures, genders, races, ethnicities, abilities, ages, religions, orientations, and political views. In many ways, APAICS, the leader it molds, and the communities it touches, shares in these same values. As a nonpartisan champion, APAICS is working to make the public policy arena more productive, higher performing, more diverse, and more just. You are breaking down barriers and building a policy landscape for all things we as a community care about. As someone who spends a lot of time on the Hill and used to work up there, I can see the work of APAICS paying off. There are many more and more AA and HPI faces when you go to the Hill, thanks to APAICS. Through the Amazon APAICS partnership, we're making a difference and investing in the future of AA and HPI community. I'm especially proud for the second year in a row, APAICS will be hosting its Women's Collective Summit at an Amazon headquarters. This year at our HQ2 location in Arlington, Virginia, right down the road. The Women's Collective Summit provides a launching point for women interested in politics and brings powerful women together to share, to inspire, and to take bold action towards creating a more representative democracy. This, in so many ways, mirrors the work of Amazon's Asians at Amazon Infinity Group, which empowers our AA and HPI community and coworkers through mentorship, leadership development, and community, helping more of us grow into the roles that we can aspire. The bond between APAICS and Amazon is a partnership we hold in the highest regard and are deeply honored to uphold. Thank you to APAICS for your leadership, your partnership, and your unwavering commitment to building a better future. Thank you, and hope you have a great rest of the day.
Okay, thank you so much, Kai. Our opening panel today is Woven Together, Strength in Community. This panel reflects the theme of APAICS's AA and NHPI Heritage Month celebrations and will discuss AA and NHPI contributions to public service and to the beautiful tapestry that makes up our community and our country. It is my honor to introduce our moderator, Crystal Ka'ai Hetherington. Crystal made history when she was appointed by President Joe Biden as the first Native Hawaiian to serve as Executive Director of the White House Initiative and President's Advisory Commission on Asian Americans, Native Hawaiians, and Pacific Islanders. During her tenure, she led the Biden-Harris administration's whole-of-government strategy to advance equity, justice, and opportunity for AA and NHPI communities, including efforts to address anti-Asian hate and expand access to federal programs for underserved communities. Crystal now serves as the Executive Director of the bipartisan, congressionally appointed National Asian Pacific American Museum Commission. Let's welcome Crystal and our panelists to the stage.
Good morning, everyone. It's so great to be here today and for us to be the first group to kick off this really incredible two-day summit, Legislative Leadership Summit from the Asian Pacific American Institute of Congressional Studies. So we have an incredible panel with us this morning to kick us off, representing very different parts of our community as well as geographic diversity. And so I'm so thrilled. I'm going to actually start off by having each of our panelists introduce themselves. And also, these are all current or former elected officials. And so I want them to also talk a little bit about the communities that they represent. As they share their introductions, you're going to hear a lot about just the immense diversity within our community and the fact that we have growing leadership in all areas of our country. So I'm going to start off with Council Member Kiaina.
Aloha mai kākou. My name is Esther Kiaina. I currently serve on the Honolulu City Council, where I represent the windward side of Oahu, which includes Waimanalo, Kailua, and Kaneohe. I'm also the chair of the zoning committee. I've been very fortunate to have had a fulfilling 30-year career at the federal, state, and city levels of government. And over the course of those years, if you work on Capitol Hill, very often you have to be a generalist covering a multitude of issues. But during the 17 years that I was on Capitol Hill, I developed a field of expertise with regard to the Native federal relationship, Native Hawaiian federal relationship, as well as the U.S. territories in the Caribbean and the Pacific, as well as the freely associated states of Micronesia. And so those are areas that have, not only did I specialize in, but during the Obama administration, when I was at the Department of Interior, I was able to use my expertise to be able to serve those communities across the country. I've also, during my tenure, had a long-time career in Capitol Hill where I worked for both the Hawaii and Guam delegations. And so I served those communities as well. And the general population in Hawaii, of course, throughout my career, I would say that my base has been the people of Hawaii as well as my constituency on the windward side. With regard to public service for me is a means of achieving justice as it relates to the Native Hawaiian people. It is wrongs arising out of the 1893 overthrow of the Kingdom of Hawaii. It also has enabled me to fight for social change and fairness, and those are values that I have been using throughout my life. And I just feel very fortunate to have had a long career in that endeavor. Thank you so much.
Mahalo, Councilwoman Kia'aina. Next, we'll go over to Mayor Lily Wu. Same question, if you can introduce yourself briefly and also share a little bit about what inspired you to pursue a career in public service.
Well, first and foremost, I would like to say thank you to Madeline and the APAICS crew. Can we give them a round of applause? It's wonderful to be back in Washington, D.C. I was actually speaking with Ben from St. Louis. I'm a Midwest girl. I'm from Wichita, Kansas, and grew up in the city that I now get to call not just my home, but the place that I get to serve as the 103rd mayor. It is the largest city in the state of Kansas. I am the first woman elected to a full term as mayor, and also the first Asian American to serve as mayor in the state of Kansas. I think it's so important for all of us to share our stories. I was born and raised in Antigua, Guatemala, so my first language is Spanish. I'm ethnically Chinese, and was fortunate enough that my grandpa sponsored us to come to America back in 1993. So on the 30th anniversary of coming to America, my family celebrated 30 years in our hometown of Wichita, and I announced my candidacy to become the next mayor for the city. I never had aspirations of getting into politics. For the past 12 years, I've been a local journalist, both for the ABC and the CBS affiliates in Wichita. And that was my dream. I actually learned English by watching television. Who did not watch some Wheel of Fortune back in the 90s? And so I always aspired to be like the out-of-classroom teachers that I often talk about. They were the local TV journalists that taught me about the culture and the community, but also I got to learn how to spell really well, thanks to Vanna White and Pat Sajak. And so my story really has been part of Wichita's story. We have a 5% Asian population in Wichita, predominantly Vietnamese and some Laotian Cambodian, as well as Lebanese. And so I have always been part of our Asian community and really appreciate that that's part of the story that I get to share with our community about cultural diversity. This is something that we have practiced, we don't talk about, we just do. And I think that that's what the Midwest and the Heartland really is all about. We're doers, and we don't just speak about things, we just really personify what we hope communities are, and that they are inclusive. We just have been. And so I'm deeply moved by being part of my community and now get to serve. And the question was about public service. Why did I get into this? It really is from a deep sense of gratitude. And I think that that has a lot to do with the immigrant story. I'm simply very grateful to live in America. And I know that my parents sacrificed a lot to come to this country. And so every day I wake up just feeling so grateful to live here and do my part in helping shape my city. And now I get this opportunity where I get to serve alongside 6 council members. And again, really grateful to be here.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Mayor Wu. And next, we're going to hear from David O, who is the founding board member of the Asian American Business Alliance of Greater Philadelphia and also a former member of the Philadelphia City Council.
All right. Thank you very much, and good morning. So, I'll start with this. I'm pretty new to the business world in the sense that for the last 11 years, I was a city council member. Prior to that, I had been an attorney, practicing attorney, and involved in a few things. But since I've resigned from city council, I started a consulting company, and I do basically what I call the intersection of law, government, and community. Not too long in that work. But one of the things that I did was really at the urging of business people, started a group called the Asian American Business Alliance. And it is a new group, about a year old, doing fantastic, really advocating for business, economic growth, good jobs, investment in Philadelphia and our greater Philadelphia area. Our group, however, is not just your AA and HPIs. For example, our group includes Arabs. And we work very closely with a lot of other immigrant groups like the Mexican Chamber, the Haitian Chamber, the Dominican Grocers, and others. So what do we find in common? What we find in common is economic independence and self-sufficiency. And that draws us together. And I think that's the interesting thing about this topic we're dealing with, woven together. Weaving what? With what? For what purpose, right? How do you weave together people that have really not much in common? And someone once said, it's like picking up sand. They don't stick together. Well, we're all very different people. And so on my time in city council, where I was the first Asian American elected to political office, I represented a lot of Asian American groups. One of the most difficult things was getting them together, because I would go to the Filipino event, the Chinese event, the Korean event, this Korean event, that Korean event, this Chinese event, that Chinese event. So when we use the term, AA, NHPI, if you go to an event, it's like 90% Vietnamese, 90% Cambodian, 90% Korean. And so kind of like saying that it's inclusive is questionable. And I only say that because that's a challenge, right? To bring us together when what we really have in common is we're not white, we're not black, we're not Latino, and we represent about 7% of this country, and someone is trying to lump us together. And unlike the Latinos, we don't share a common language. So I did go around representing all the different groups, kind of on a case-by-case basis. And I was also at the time a Republican, right? I'm still a Republican. What I mean is a Republican in Philadelphia is a kind of a rare thing. And so what is my role? Who do I represent? Well, one is as a AANHPI, I'm dealing with a group of people that have been unrepresented and feel very targeted and picked on. By whom? By government. By government. More than anything else, they feel oppressed by government. Secondly, I deal with veterans, because I was only veteran on city council at the time, and they feel neglected. And then I dealt with a lot of African Americans and Latinos who were very poor, and they were disenfranchised on certain topics, such as having their children removed from their families illegally by social services, which was not a popular thing to deal with, because people in Philadelphia love to believe that Department of Human Services and Child Protective Services does amazing work, and they do, but they also illegally remove children because of reasons of poverty. And there are a number of issues that we go through. So I ended up, oddly, dealing with disenfranchised communities. One of the awards that I've gotten, just to kind of explain a little bit about that I love so much, is I was a 2016 Philly Hip Hop Man of the Year. That is a great story. One day I have to tell it to you. My gray pinstripe suit walked in to a room of like 2,000 young, cool, hip African Americans pounding that music. And I was like, very nice to be invited here. Went backstage. There was one award taller than all the others. I said, let me see what that one is. It said, David O, Philly Hip Hop Man of the Year. I don't do music, but I believe in the creative arts economy. And I started a committee on the creative arts economy. And that's how I got involved in music, indie rock, country music, jazz, classical music, global music, right? World music. whatever it is. Anyway, that was my constituency. And prior to that, as I said, I had been an attorney, but I had also been appointed by our Democratic Mayor, Ed Rendell, to a number of boards, such as Community College of Philadelphia, the Mayor's Commission on Literacy, and things like that. And I'm very much an advocate for being about people and being able to find common ground as much as possible. And I'll end with that. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So, as you can hear from our panelists today, we have a very diverse group of folks, but also a number of historic firsts, right? And I think that is something we are still seeing today. So many of our elected officials and leaders in our communities are historic firsts, even in the year 2025. And so, while we have made tremendous progress as a community, there is still a lot of work ahead. The title of this panel, as David alluded to, is Strength in Community. Or Woven Together, Strength in Community. And he already alluded to this a little bit, but, our community is extremely diverse. We are, according to the 2020 census, one of the fastest growing racial and ethnic populations in the country. We are comprised of over 40 distinct ethnic groups that speak over 100 different languages. So an extremely, and we represent various geographic locations, religions, just so much diversity, also political affiliations, as is reflected on this panel. And so to our panelists, I want to ask you a little bit about just that diversity. Can you share a time when you have faced a challenge bringing together different parts of our AA and NHPI community, or perhaps saw a particular segment of the community left out? And how did you navigate that situation? And really, because this panel is also about finding solutions and inspiring leadership, what helped you to build trust across divides and to find a productive path forward in those situations? So I'm going to start off with Councilwoman Kia Aina again.
Thank you for that question. Community, I know that our topic today is about our API community, but community, we couldn't do, as public policy makers, we couldn't do anything without community. So let me just say that out front first. So even with regard to my current role, I work very closely with all of our neighborhood boards because if I'm dealing with a contentious issue, it's so important to hear about community. So if there's one thing that you take away, it's just that everything you do, when you do something, you need to, they may not be happy with your decision, but you need to be inclusive of the thoughts of community. I'd like to take us back about 25 years ago in a matter that I dealt with while I was Chief of Staff for Congressman Robert Underwood of Guam, who also at the time was chair of the Congressional Asian Pacific American Caucus. And what we were dealing with during that time is that there are a lot of major institutions across the country with pivotal roles in higher education who completely left out Asian American Pacific Islanders. And one of those was the College Board that had issued a report regarding minority achievement in higher education and completely left us out. And so we protested. And we felt that while we are diverse and they are very successful Asian communities within our API community, we felt that Pacific Islanders and Southeast Asians merited some attention in that report. And so we mobilized across the country, and we had an advisory group composed of the diversity of our communities: Chinese Americans, Japanese Americans, Southeast Asians, Pacific Islanders, Native Hawaiians. And what we did was I believe it was about 12 to 16 organizations from across the country. And we held a meeting in Washington, D.C. The College Board did not want to come. And I said, during my leveraging days, I said, I need to let you know, I invited all of the higher education institutions in the region. They are coming. I will let the media know that you were invited and you decided not to show up. They did show up. And they ended up putting aside money to deal with the populations that we heard. But the reason I'm sharing this story is because I had a Chinese American and South Asian American friend who said, Esther, do we really have to come? We're very empathetic, but we're doing okay. And then, of course, you guys know what a tita is in Hawaii, right? It's someone who just says it the way it is. And I said, we help you, yeah? K-Pac. And they go, yeah. And I said, you are showing up at this event. You're going to be showing up for our brothers and sisters who need help. And anyway, the reason this is important is when the Gates Millennium Scholars Program was started, the Gates Foundation completely left us out as well. Because of that advisory group, we were able to maintain that continuity. We fought against the United Negro College Fund and the Gates Foundation because they said we didn't have a scholarship fund. And we had the Organization for Chinese Americans be the conduit. So we said, not next year, this year, you will be giving us money and establishing a set amount of fund for that program. And I'm very proud that at the time, the Freely Associated States of Micronesia, we didn't even know as a community who they were. We fought to have them included when it came to Pacific Islanders. So that effort also helped to kickstart the APIA Scholars Fund because they said we didn't have a fund. And I do know that professors at UCLA and elsewhere were fighting for that. So it was the genesis for this movement that also eventually led to Congressman Underwood introducing legislation for Asian American and Native American Pacific Islander serving institutions, which provides funding for those programs across the country that have a certain percentage of our communities. So I just want to say, embrace our diversity. Do not let others try to say, because you're so diverse, don't help the others within our organization. We had contended that even if East Asian Americans were successful, that they, across the spectrum in higher education, they were not represented. So across our spectrum, there's so many different needs. So I am a believer in helping our community separately when we have to, but do not be afraid because we are a powerful force and we're going to remain that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Kia Aina. And again, for those of you who do not know her, she has such a tremendous amount of knowledge and history as someone who has worked both in Hawaii but also in Washington, D.C. for many decades. So I always love listening to the councilwoman share her stories of so many of our institutions that exist today, including the APAICS program, who, again, many of you know, has been instrumental to providing opportunities to higher education for our students, as well as some of the fundamental organizations that exist today were created. So thank you again, Councilwoman. Mayor, same question. Given how diverse our community is, can you share a time when you may have faced a challenge having to bring together diverse coalitions and how you really overcame and, forged a path forward?
So I really resonated with what David was talking about. In Wichita, I mentioned 5% of the population is of Asian American descent. And so I've been part of an organization called the Wichita Asian Association since I was 18 years old. The organization started in 1981, and the organization started off simply by putting on an Asian festival. It started on the campus of Wichita State University, and it has grown to our biggest convention center that attracts over 10,000 people every year. And so this Asian festival has been put on by 100% volunteers of all ethnic backgrounds. So this group is made up of individuals who have legacy, right? They've been in the community for quite some time. They've been part of the organization. When I became president of the association back in 2014 and 2015, I was the next wave of the young professionals getting involved. And I know that in many of our communities, we have that same challenge. We have legacy organizations where we're needing the young professionals and the youth to truly get activated and involved. So for me, I've always been about empowering young women. And so the Asian Festival has a portion of it is a cultural pageant. The cultural pageant really is for each of our young ladies to connect with their cultural heritage. So they used to represent countries of their ethnic heritage. And so when I became president, I said I would like to expand what the Wichita Asian Association looks at in terms of who is going to be represented. For many years, the Lebanese community had been putting together a food booth at our festival, but never were they invited at the table. And the Lebanese community in Wichita in particular, it grew because of physicians. So Wichita State University, but in addition to that, a lot of healthcare happens in Wichita. And so the Lebanese community continued growing in our community, but they were represented through their church. They never thought of themselves as part of our association. And so for the first time ever, we had a Miss Lebanon. And I still, to this day, I have Lebanese community members that are very grateful that we extended our hand. And I think it's the commonality. We might not have a common language, but I think it's common values. Especially in the Midwest, the common values are family, faith, and freedom. It's really about individuality. And so that is in itself a challenge. When you are an individual, you're not going to agree on everything. And it has been difficult, even to this day, now transitioning as a mayor, bringing together the Asian community that is so diverse. We have our older generation and our youth that have different perspectives on what is inclusivity and what is the representation of Asian Americans. And for me, I simply want everyone to explain their position, their individual position, not as a group, because we're not going to agree on everything. And that has been a challenge really in this role as mayor, because I have a lot of young Asian Americans that are fighting with the traditional ways. And so I feel like I'm a bridge, and part of being a bridge is understanding the value of history and the value of the sacrifices that our first gen, second gen immigrants with those who were born and raised in the Midwest, but also have been influenced by a lot of the coasts. And so it's a lot of struggle. And I can simply say that the struggle should bring us together. We need to get back to tables, and it's not through social media. I can tell you that that is not healthy. And so for me, I think that we have an opportunity to bring people together, be more action-oriented, and stop with the social media banter back and forth, because that's not really going to change people's minds. What's going to change people's minds is when you break bread with one another and see each other as we have commonality as human beings, and let's get back to finding the common ground first, and we can work on the challenges together, but it has to start with commonality first.
Thank you, Mayor Wu. Same question again, Councilmember O.
Sure. So I'm going to talk about 3 ordinances. The 11 p.m. ordinance, the bulletproof glass ordinance, and the 11 p.m. curfew. And I'll try to put that into context. So I was an assistant district attorney. I was a practicing lawyer. This is my 40th year as an attorney. I got elected in 2012, and I've worked with every Asian American community in Philadelphia. I started in 1984, while I was in law school, a free legal service program called the Asian Law Center, because it was something that community legal services did not do. 2 years after Vincent Chin, right, where the ACLU did not take up Vincent Chin's case because he was a Chinese American. And so the lack of recognition of civil rights and the contribution of AA and NHPIs in the history of America through the Supreme Court of the United States and all the cases was absent, and a vilification of people who were of Asian ancestry. So I never heard of the 11 p.m. ordinance. What I heard of since I had been in the district attorney's office is when a crime occurs, let's say in a Chinese takeout restaurant or a Chinese restaurant, good luck getting them to come to court because they won't leave their businesses. They don't want to lose a penny. commonly said, and commonly believed. And same thing for Koreans and every Vietnamese. They won't come to court because they won't leave their business. And we try to understand, they got to support their family, all that type of thing. So something was occurring in Philadelphia, and that was home invasion robberies of Chinese takeout restaurants. They would break the door in, come up with guns, threaten and harm to get the money. They believe there's cash and gold and all that stuff. And it was alarming. At the same time, the victims would not come forward. And so the police and everybody, I called the hearing in city council to find out what's, what can we do about this? And in the process, to my surprise, shock, I discovered there was 11 p.m. ordinance. Never heard of it before. And why would I? 11 p.m. ordinance said, if you have a business where 50% of the goods or services are consumed off-site, your business has to close at 11 p.m. There were no regs on it or anything. But for 14 years, the only businesses being closed were Chinese takeout restaurants. 97% of the few businesses that were actually being closed were just Chinese takeout restaurants. And without regs, it wasn't licenses and inspections doing it. It was police. And so somebody politically connected would call the police or a council member, and a police car would come by, officers would come out, and they'd say, it's 11 o'clock. And they'd tell everyone in the takeout restaurant to get out, whether you got your food or not, you just paid your money. And they would close the store and leave them with a $2,000 fine. $2,000 times 10 is $20,000. So they're not making a living. But right next to this Chinese takeout restaurant were other takeout restaurants that were not closed. And it didn't happen to every Chinese takeout restaurant. It was just very haphazard. And so as a council member, what I said to our council president and our city was, this is illegal, it's unconstitutional. And they said, no, it's not. And so I went through this for about a year. I introduced a bill to amend it and do all that stuff, tried to do it tactfully in a political sense, not want to embarrass anybody, and got nowhere for a year. And so what I did was I contacted ALDEF, Asian American Legal Defense and Education Fund, and they picked up the matter, and they retained, or they didn't retain, but they contacted one of our major firms in Philadelphia, Pepper Hamilton, that picked up this case and sued the city in federal court. Now, the city settled because, of course, it's illegal, unconstitutional, discriminatory. And my office did all the research on it on Google Earth. We had to look at each neighborhood and because we got no help from the city. And the city offered to settle by not enforcing that law. I fortunately was in a position to say no. Like, of all the businesses that you've shut down, all the people that you vilified, all the damage that you've done, we only got 19 plaintiffs because people don't want to sue the city. They're afraid of politicians, government. They don't want to get up front. And so 19 people sued. And what I told our lawyers was they need some type of compensation. And that was done. However, we could not get the other Asian American groups to get involved, including nonprofits, organizations, associations. And in fact, other Chinese American groups said, well, we're not a Chinese takeout restaurant. And a number of groups said, well, they're terrible people. They serve this terrible food. And why? Because it was driven by African Americans in the community that were disgruntled about it. And so this group of Chinese takeout restaurant owners that I met with, they just felt, well, we're being attacked by African Americans and we don't have any power. And I said to them, you have no greater friend on this issue than African Americans. You have no greater friend. And they were shocked and surprised and delighted. What do you mean? I said, if anybody understands what this law is and what it does, it's Black people. And so I was able to bring together several groups of African Americans, including our African American police, our NAACP chapter, and others, Professionals for Progress, who stood with the Chinese Americans, and this matter was resolved. I know I got a short time, so I'm going to try to wrap it up this way. following that was a bill that said you can't have bulletproof glass in your store. And it only applied to Asian stores. It didn't apply to Latinos, banks, didn't apply to SEPTA, the government. It didn't apply to pawn shops. Kentucky Fried Chicken had bulletproof glass up at Temple University. It didn't apply to them. And the reasoning at the hearing was because Asian Americans hate Black people. Therefore, they put a barrier up so they don't want to touch them or something like that. And that's the testimony. And if that spreads out in the community, you can understand why young African Americans in the hood say they hate us. They hate us, and we are going to strike back, right? You're building animosity that does not need to be there. And finally, after I've left, they came out with a new 11 p.m. Curfew, which is basically in our troubled neighborhoods at 11 p.m., businesses have to shut down because they contribute to crime. And again, the funny thing is this. It targets primarily Arab, South Asian, Latino, and Asian American businesses. And so de facto discrimination, again, you don't have an ability, you don't have a legal right to go shut down businesses in an effort to fight crime when you're not even fighting crime. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I know we are short on time. We have about 6 minutes to wrap up. And so what I was struck, though, by listening to all of you is just, again, the importance of not only bridging diversity within our community, but also building coalition outside of our community as well. And I think, again, all of these current and former elected officials are a testament to the importance of having leadership at the highest levels where decisions are being made so that our communities have a voice. And so I really want to thank you all for your tremendous service. As we wrap up, we are in Washington, D.C. during a very interesting time. Our country is very politically divided. I think there are also some young people who may be discouraged from pursuing a path in public service because of what they see as just so much infighting happening in our political circles. So as we wrap up, I'd love to hear from each of you how we can leave our audience with a bit of inspiration. And so for each of you, what keeps you motivated to do the work you do, and what gives you hope for the future? So I'm going to start with Councilwoman Kia Aina.
Thank you. First off, I think that every one of us in this room today, whether you're elected official or not, has it within us to do well in public policy. And that is, of course, because of our own innate value system, as well as all of the hard work that has been borne by our families, not just our parents, but our grandparents. And so I think family upbringing is so important for all of us in all that we do. And you can't let anybody, no matter what is going on, shake that. As I previously stated, for me, I've always been driven by my pursuit of seeking justice, social change, or fairness in all of society. And I have used that value system throughout my career. But there are two incidents in my life that inspired me to reach that echelon that we all strive for. And first is my father. When I was in college in DC and I felt that the climate was very anti-Native Hawaiian, I was crying to him saying that DC is not glamorous like I thought it was, and I wanted to leave. This was in the late 1980s. And my father said, I didn't know that I could leave. He said, you will not leave. You can't leave. And I said, but I just told you I don't like this place. And he said, if you don't begin to ever care, who will? And I need to let you know the environment in DC at that time was very hostile. It had concluded that the U.S. government was not liable for the loss of sovereignty of lands of the Native Hawaiian people. And I'm pleased to say that during my time in DC, which was 24 years cumulatively, I worked on major legislation to not only admit liability, but have laid the groundwork for a strong relationship for our people. And if it wasn't for him, I probably would have left. The other major incident in my life happened when I was 6 years old, and I was sleeping with my sister, who was 9 years old, and she never woke up. And she was suffering from a brain aneurysm. And a few days later, they had to take her off the ventilator. And so at a young age, I have appreciated the fragility of life and how God could just arbitrarily look at us both sleeping there and determine whose time was to go and whose time God still wanted to be on this earth. And so I guess what I'm trying to tell you is at a young age, I wake up every day appreciating life, appreciating that I could not be here. And when I combine that with the values of myself and my family, I'm unstoppable because I will suck everything out of life that I can to do better for myself, my family, and for overall society. And so when you choose something, all of you, a path that you want to pursue, do it. And even with the current administration and all of the challenges, I am not scared because we will weather this. But again, we can fight individually. We can fight with a couple of groups within our larger community, but we can fight together. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Esther. We have only about 2 more minutes, so really quick for our final two panelists. Just again, what words of inspiration do you want to leave our audience? Mayor Wu.
So get civically engaged, each and every one of you. Whether you're currently in political office or not, there's always an opportunity for you to get civically engaged and get to know your local government. Volunteer your time on a board, get involved and run for office. I am a registered libertarian. I'm a classical liberal, meaning I really believe in the Constitution and I believe in limited government because I do believe that the value system that I grew up in with a family that taught me financial responsibility and fiscal stewardship, I just feel like those are things that are taught in the family, not by government. So if you're expecting government to solve your problems, you're going to be very disappointed. And our Asian community in Wichita knows we get stuff done, we just do. And it goes back to that drive that's what America was built on. Next year is the 250th anniversary of America. And I think we need to get back to some core values. And in the Midwest, those core values are strong. Therefore, we don't see the challenges as the things that are negative, but rather it's an opportunity to rise above them. And so my words of inspiration really are just to get involved, get in those spaces because representation matters. When people see you from your lived experiences, I don't represent all Asian Americans. I represent Lily Wu. And I always ask people to call me Mayor Lily instead of Mayor Wu, because I know in my Chinese tradition, my last name comes first. So it's about family first. And I appreciate that. And that's always part of my motivation. But it also is about who I am as an individual. And I'm Lily. And Lily carries with her certain values too. And I'm grateful for that. And I hope that each and every one of you will use your individual voice to help be the progress and be the change that you really want to see in your own communities.
All right. Public service, the public area is a wonderful place to be. So many people can talk to people who agree with them. But being an elected official, for example, is to represent everybody. And that includes people you don't agree with, people who are vilified, disenfranchised, people who are disrespected, people who are ignored. If you don't talk with them, if you don't show up, if you don't try to understand them, you don't have to be insincere. You can believe what you believe, but you can have that dialogue with them and find a way to make their life better. And it's a place where you can really do that. And so I would encourage everyone, listen, don't just preach to the choir and don't just preach. Like engage and understand, why are we so divided? Why do we have such very different views of things? And we start by showing up at the temple, taking off your shoes and socks, showing up at the mosque, the masjid, showing up at the church, showing up at the temple. enjoying the holidays, celebrating with people, eating the food, and then trying to solve their problems. And if you have done that for a group of people, you can bring people together because you'll have that credibility of this woman represents us. And she's done or he's done so much for us. And now they're asking us to show up to break bread, to talk with some group that we've never really interacted with, or outside of the US, we're enemies. But here as Americans, we can get together. And so this is where we can become one people.
Let's give another final round of applause to our panelists, and thank you all so much.